So hello, greetings. It's Dr. Thomas Daffowen speaking. It's my weekly Sunday talk. So greetings, it's March the 15th and we've had a hell of a week as a planet with this coronavirus outbreak. Yeah, many people are suffering, many people have died, and my heart goes out to everyone who's lost loved ones, family, friends. None of us know whether we'll make it through this attack. We all sit in a sort of existential angst, which is a new experience, I think, for many of us. I mean, I used to work in medicine, and I have a great respect for hospitals and doctors. I worked in hospitals for about 5 years, and what must be going on in northern Italy and China and so on is horrendous. I've seen some shocking documentaries about the situation. I'm just praying that we find a vaccine as soon as possible to end this suffering, and also can have an absolute consensus among the world's medical experts that this is the cause, and then we can make sure this doesn't happen again. So for the first part of this talk, I want to focus on the coronavirus problem. And I want to share some of my own research and thoughts that I've come up with about this. And I'm speaking as a philosopher and a historian of ideas. I've taught classes on the history of medicine. It's a field I'm very interested in. I've taught a pioneering course on the history of religion and medicine at the University of Oxford back in the 1990s. Which I still keep meaning to write up as a kind of encyclopedia of religion and medicine. I've never got round to it. I've got all the notes. If I live long enough, I'll do it. Because to me, medicine and religion go together. They're very important. And in that course, I spoke about Greek medicine, the link to Greek religion, Asclepius. To be cured in ancient Greece, you went to the temple of Asclepius and you had your dreams. Hippocrates on Kos, where I've been, who was the founder of scientific medicine. He was a deeply pious man who believed in Asclepius, the god of healing, and who was the son of Apollo. And I'm, in that tradition as a philosopher, like Henryk Skolimowski and other, eco-philosophers who what I think our position is that medicine is not just purely material science. There's a factor X involved with good healing, with a good doctor. And it's also the ability to spot the cause of illness from different symptoms. Obviously that's what Hippocrates pioneered. But then also we've got other medical systems that have arisen in other religions like Buddhism, and there's a huge, rich history of Buddhism and medicine which I've explored and taught. And the medicine Buddha is a particular, aspect of the Buddha nature. All great bodhisattvas are also healers, and Buddha himself was a healer because he taught the cause of suffering and the cure to suffering. Now that's essentially what medicine is. Buddha is a medicine teacher, and the same with Islam, which teaches. Had amazing medical schools in the Islamic world. They integrated the Greek medical traditions. They translated all the Hippocratic traditions, Galen, all the great medical writings of Greece and Rome were absorbed into the Islamic currents and then added to with other traditions that came from India, from Mesopotamia, Babylonia, Sumeria, going right back to the ancient sages of the early Middle Eastern cultures, which also had their medical traditions and had been inherited by Zoroastrian doctors and also by Egyptian medicine. So the Islamic world had this richness of Greek, Egyptian, Babylonian, Sumerian, Syrian, Christian, which they absorbed, particularly through Nestorian Christians who came to, translate in Baghdad in the House of Wisdom, the Beit al-Hikmah. So I have great respect for the Islamic medical traditions who advanced a lot of the modern medicine that we regard now as, Western European. Actually, it was Islamic. Things like ophthalmology, the study of the eye, the naming of lots of diseases, the development of a scientific pharmacopoeia, working with alchemy and studying, the kind of agents that cause disease. So, anyway, I've done an awful lot of research on the history of medicine, and of course Chinese medicine fascinates me. I taught classes on that, and Shintoism and Japanese medicine, you see, and then of course in Hinduism and the Ayurveda medical systems. So all of these are very rich, and I don't take the view that the West has the monopoly of medical knowledge. I think that proper medicine draws on scientific, tradition, empirical, evidential research, but also has this factor X, this which is to do with the moral causes of illness and the spiritual causes, if you want. In the Christian tradition, there's the realization that disease can be spread in all kinds of ways, at all kinds of empirical levels. So I'm going to be commenting on this outbreak from that perspective. I'm an expert in the philosophy and history of medicine, looking at a global pandemic that is now scaring and terrifying millions of people around the world and has the danger of killing many of us. In my country, in Britain, the Prime Minister has announced effectively a sort of mass culling of the elderly and the infirm and the poor as his policy. Let the disease take hold of the people. I mean, the man is mad, and he's beyond ethics. He hasn't got a concept of ethics. And he justifies it all because that's what the scientists say. Well, if that's what the scientists say, they need sacking and they need re-educating. And I taught at the University of Oxford on the philosophy of scientific medicine, and I assure you there's nothing in scientific canon that says let an entire population of 65 million people get ill and see who lives. It's fake science, that's Dominic Cummings style. And thank God for Rory Stewart, the ex-MP for Cumbria, a very good man, I think, who I've corresponded with for calling that one out. So look, coronavirus, where's it come from? Okay, so I've been exploring hypotheses as to etiology, which is the scientific study of causes of disease. Now, some of my friends and colleagues and people that correspond with me say this is inappropriate to ask. I mean, I don't agree. I think etiology is very, very important when it comes to medicine. The causes of disease are absolutely vital to solving it and preventing it recurring. Until you know the cause of disease, you can't. I mean, yes, you can cure the symptoms, you can maybe find a drug that treats it, but you can't actually 100% knock it on the head. It might pop up again sometime. So the conventional scientific view is that this is a naturally recurring mutated virus that's been festered in a pool of a population of bats that live in these remote caves, and that somehow, for some reason, these coronaviruses dwell in these bat area, and they've now leaped. The one argument is it leaped somehow, quite how it got into it, but into a pangolin, or maybe it happened more than once, and then that in turn ends up in the meat markets in Wuhan, and they are then picked up by humans. That's one theory. And I've read about the Chinese woman who's researching these bat diseases, and yes, they are there. So that's one theory, which is it's logical. I mean, one logical complaint I have against that theory is why hasn't it done this leaping before? If these coronaviruses are that prevalent among bats and bats have been there for millions of years, I mean thousands of years, why haven't they been leaping all this time? Why has humanity never had an outbreak of a disease like this before? If that explanation is factual and true, surely it would have happened before. I mean, so I'd love to know a scientific response to that question. I've not seen one in the literature. There's a sort of closure of discussion going on between between different schools of explanation. My job as an intellectual historian is to keep alive the discussion across all the possible explanations. I'm not wedded, I suspend judgment. I'm practicing epoche, I have a suspension of judgment going on. But I demand the right of intellectual freedom to ask the questions as to the cause of this thing, because this is potentially the most horrific attack on the planet during my lifetime, or for centuries, I don't know, since the bubonic plague or something. And because we're also interlinked as a global community now, it has the potential to spread like wildfire. I don't want to be sleeping on the job as an intellectual and see this happen in front of me and say nothing, do nothing. For all I know, this will be my last ever broadcast. I could be dead next week, or anyone listening to this could. So I think we have a duty, therefore, to ask really, really fundamental questions. Okay, the next explanation I've read, and again, you can find this on the internet and in papers and so on, is that no, this is an artificially created virus. That yes, the original was a bat virus, but that very clever bioweapons experts have taken that and engineered it and given it this extra fast replication system, which seems to function a bit like AIDS. That's what I've read. I can't comment on the veracity of that, but certainly it's functioning unbelievably quickly, 1,000 times quicker than SARS, apparently. Well, the theory is this was engineered artificially. Now, I suspend judgment. I haven't got a clue if that's right or wrong. I just say it's one of the explanations out there. And I'm appealing to genuine scientists, genuine scholars, genuine intellectuals out there to engage in dialogue and do the research. Let's find out what caused this. Other people are working on the vaccine, that's fine, let them get on with it. I'm asking for another group to work on the cause, the etiology. Okay, so that's the second theory, is it's artificially created, and the only place it could have been done is some kind of bioweapons lab. You and I don't have the skills to do this. Even if we've studied and got PhDs in biochemistry, or we wouldn't be able to do this. You need equipment, you need an accumulated body of knowledge. Now, places like Porton Down near Salisbury, which is Britain's bioweapons lab, and their equivalents worldwide, yes, they would have the knowledge to do this. So I've done the research, and are they doing research on coronaviruses? It would appear so, yes. The USA had outlawed these things for a while, but 3 years ago they were made legal again. So it's going on in the USA. Research into making coronaviruses into weapons is going on as we speak. Is it happening in Canada? Some people say this has come from a lab in Canada. I dread to think, as a Canadian citizen, I'm shocked and appalled to even think that that is possible. Again, it must be possible to contact the heads of the lab in Canada and ask them, is this your baby? And to get questions asked in the Canadian Parliament. Because if it's true, it's absolutely shocking. One theory is that it leaked from the Canadian lab somehow to China. And there are labs that do this kind of research in China itself, near Wuhan. There's labs presumably in France, where I'm speaking from, and in the USA and other countries. Israel, we know, has similar labs. Now, some of these labs, like the Porton Down one, they profess not to be making biological weapons at all, but merely making defences against them, in case the other guys are making the weapons. Because these things are all internationally outlawed by international treaty, so you're not allowed to make biological weapons or deploy them. It's completely against the law, and there's a treaty in force. However, the labs like Porton Down justify it by saying, well, we need a few of the pathogens, and we need to make a few of these viruses so we can test how we can cure people from them. So we work on vaccines, and therefore we need some of the weapons around. Well, that's the argument. But then, if all the labs around the world are arguing that, then actually they're going on making the weapons. So it's possible that someone was working on a cure for this coronavirus type thing and made a few of the things. Now, one theory is that it leaked out by accident. I think it would have had to be in China, which was the epicenter of the outbreak, if it was an accidental thing. And so it leaked out from Wuhan, or I think there's 2 labs capable of making this stuff in and around Wuhan. Now, The directors of that should be interviewed. Why aren't the world's press going there and interviewing them point blank? I don't know. Why is the journalism not happening? Why aren't people flying in with camera crews and interviewing these people, doorstepping them tomorrow? They should be. And the Chinese people have a right to know what's going on. I know China is a relatively closed society, but this throws the normal rule books out the window. We have to find out the truth here. And I hope that by the time I next record a thing, if I'm alive next week, that somebody will have interviewed the heads of all the labs in Canada, America, USA, and China and Israel, and said, look, are you researching this? Did you make this kind of stuff? We have the right to know, and this is, I think, the philosophical, one of the philosophical conclusions I'm going to come to at the end of this talk is, this provokes a revolutionary rethink of our global community and our global democracy. We can't go on as we are in a world of secrecy and lies and misinformation and militarism. Because, just think about it for a minute, that option too, that it was manufactured in a bioweapons lab, I find morally unacceptable. That people should be paid probably vast sums of money to research how to make such terrifying weapons, which may have then leaked accidentally. I find totally unacceptable as a moral thinker, as a philosopher engaged in peace work for many years. And it shows that our world system is totally skewed in the wrong direction, So we need to find out the truth here. Right, the third option, the third possible logical explanation for this is that, yes, it was manufactured in a bioweapons lab. Many people say that's the case. I mean, the science has not yet been, I think, proved conclusively, and that's why I'm appealing to scientists to actually get on and do the work. But if it's true that it was made in a bioweapons lab, this third possibility, which is horrendous, is that it was then leaked deliberately. So not accidentally, that's option 2, but actually deliberately, as an actual deployment in a biowarfare scenario. Well, that is, we're going into the scale of the least and least acceptable. Accident's horrible, but, we can deal with that. Kind of accidentally leaking, well, that's terrible and horrible, but we can sort of kind of deal with it by tightening up security at these places and shutting them down. But created on purpose and then leaked on purpose, deployed, now we're entering the realms of criminal actions, because that would be against international law. It would be against all right reason. It would be against all cosmic law. And whoever did that should be therefore brought to justice. So I'm talking now a criminal act by a rogue unit operating within some kind of nation-state security black ops system who thought this was a good idea. Intellectually, one can ask, well, who would have thought that? America, like USA? Are there dark ops working behind the scenes in the USA? Well, many people say they are. And they could have leaked this thinking, well, it's a jolly good idea. I tell you what, we'll go and attack China with bioweapons. I don't think that's beyond the possibility scenario, because we've seen it, with some other dark ops that the USA gets up to from time to time. I suspect they didn't, if it was leaked in that way and deployed, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have thought it would have this huge impact and negatively impact on the entire world, including blowback to the USA. So, if they did that, they're extremely stupid. Yeah, well, that is also very possible, because some of these American CIA types are extremely stupid. These are the people that, tried to cover up 9/11 when the whole thing was obviously a chaotic, multi-layered conspiracy that had sort of blown out of, control, and they tried to cover it up for years. They are seriously stupid, some of these people. And this coronavirus could be another one, another 9/11 type chaotic conspiracy got out of control. Other countries that might have thought this is a good idea, well, I hate to say, but the UK is in the hands of a very dark cabal run by a Brexiting Tory party of extremists. It's possible somebody in the UK might have thought, I know what we'll do, we'll launch a biological attack on China with our American colleagues, we'll hush it up, we'll get some black ops people in there and out before you can blink. And that'll cause such diversion that nobody will bother about Brexit anymore. It'll just be a done deal. And Scotland will be so terrified they'll never think of leaving the UK because, gosh, they wouldn't be able to cope with this. And Northern Ireland, well, they'll just lie down and probably all die anyway. So, it is possible, I'm sorry, and I'm being Abelard here, I'm being logical. We have to look at all these options. It is possible someone in the UK system, the Brexit fanatical right-wing terrorist system, which is what I regard as taking over my country, would have actually thought, let's deploy weapons in China. And I believe Porton Down would definitely have the ability to manufacture this stuff. And the arrogance too, to think this is acceptable, it's not going to blow back. And it's also interesting, the response by the UK government is like to pretend it's not happening. Well, just let it go through the population, which to me is a kind of sign of guilt to some extent. It's like, well, we created this, we're the superpower here, we know what we're doing. No, it's not going to kill that many people, maybe 1 million. That arrogance of Boris Johnson and his scientific cronies, to me, looks like guilt. And I would therefore like someone to go and doorstep and interview the head of Porton Down and point blank ask him, did your lot make this stuff? Have you got the capacity? And I'd like that to be asked under freedom of information legislation in the House of Parliament by the opposition, the Lib Dems, who would have the courage to ask that, the Green MP, Labour presumably would want the truth. I don't think the Conservatives would they'll probably call me a nutcase conspiracy theorist for even wanting the truth. Nowadays, if you want the truth, you're called a conspiracy nutcase. It's a very weird world we're living in. But anyway, that question needs to be asked. It was William Blake said all things begin and end on Albion's rocky shore. So, if this is the end of the world, I want to know if the people that my taxes have paid for at Porton Down have actually manufactured this. And if not, then fine, let Channel 4 news crews into the place and let's see. And now it's all squeaky clean, we're just making vaccines here. And if so, please get on with the vaccine. Right, so that's now, and then there are other possibilities. Could it be Israel? Israel says they're close to a vaccine. Well, that's a bit suspicious. Maybe it was someone in the dark ops community of the Israeli biowarfare team thought, you know what, Netanyahu's looking, he might fall. Nah, we want to help him out here. We want to create the most ridiculous trouble. We're going to go and plant, some of this coronavirus stuff over in China. That'll create mayhem in the world community. Meanwhile, Netanyahu will just carry on for another couple of years, and we can carry on doing what we're doing, which is basically suppressing the Palestinian rights. We can make sure they get infected and start dying off. And they probably thought, I'm thought play here, if they did it, they thought, well, Israel's so protected, we can keep this thing out. Palestinians, West Bank, no, they'll get it, that's great, and Iran will get it, that's our worst enemy, for reasons that it's not logical to explain. So it's possible. There's a line of thought that some really hardline extremist right-wing fanatical Zionist who denies the rights of just about every other citizen on the planet to exist because their God is the only God, and therefore the Bible says they'll all be wiped out and Israel will be the only people left standing. It fits in with their extremist ideology. So yes, it's possible. Some extremist black ops group within the extreme right-wing Zionist cabal that's now running this state, which used to be called Israel, which used to be quite a nice place. I've been there several times. I love Israel, but I don't love this place that these extremists have created. And again, I would hope to God it's not that, the cause, but I'm saying it needs to be ruled out. So somebody needs to go and interview the head of Israel's bioweapons lab, and I believe in the next few days there may be a new government in Israel, and it might be slightly more liberal. They might actually understand the difference between truth and lies. It's possible. And they might, I believe the president's asked Mr. Gantz to go ahead and form a new government. Well, I would like the first thing Mr. Gantz does when he gets into power to check on the who are the black ops units and where were they when this attack in Wuhan started? And have they got, blood on their hands? Because effectively that's what this is. And if so, they should be, punished with the entire weight of the law. And if this operation was authorised by Netanyahu or someone close to him, that person should be exposed. This is a war criminal act of the highest and most ferocious possibility, and should be dealt with as such. What about Russia? Russia probably has the facilities. Would they have done this? I don't see Russia, wanting to irritate China. They're actually quite close, China and Russia. They've got various BRICS things, and they've got various security treaties in signing. They've got a huge common frontier. I don't see Russia as wanting to do this, actually. And I can't see... Also, Russia's quite close to Iran. They have shared lots of things, have trade agreements. This has affected Iran terribly. I can't see Russia as having wanted to do that. Lavrov, who's the foreign minister, seems to me to be quite an intellectual and decent man. There's no way he would have authorised something like this. I know Putin has dealt with unsavoury oligarchs, but I don't think even unsavoury oligarchs would hatch a plan like this. So, could it have leaked from a Russian lab by accident and somehow got to Wuhan? Not by accident. I think if it leaked from a Russian lab, it was taken to Wuhan deliberately. Could it be a rogue kind of ex-KGB guy with a real mental health problem? Possibly. It's possible. I think whoever did this has a mental health problem, if it was a deliberate thing. But the only slight problem with that is that people with serious mental health problems, like pathological desire to wipe out humanity, I don't think would be able to get anywhere close to these very, very secure laboratories where this stuff is cultured and grown. I hope, anyway. It's like the worst case James Bond novel when the really evil villain gets, looks like he's getting away with it. Anyway, now you might say, okay, so, and what about others? Well, I don't think Canada would have deliberately leaked this. If it came from a Canadian lab, it was stolen, it was hijacked and then deliberately taken. Anyway, discuss. Do your own research. Let me know if you find out. And please, let's get these people interviewed around the world. This is a matter of high moral and intellectual priority, is to interview them all. And if it's a natural thing, it's naturally occurring, a community are right, then let's get on the record from all these heads of labs. Well, no, it wasn't us. We're not researching that, and we certainly didn't leak this. Let's hear that direct, on camera, please. Another possibility, which because I've been thinking this through over the last 7 days, is, well, this could have been manufactured in a kind of bioweapons lab, but not one run by a government, a kind of dark scientific thing run by an elite dark science web. Like in the latest, one of the James Bond movies, when he goes off to this place in North Africa and has to get into that mad scientist's laboratory. Something like that, run by a very dark, evil bunch of scientists. They do exist, those kind of places, and there are evil scientists that misuse their knowledge for criminal conspiracies. What this option then is that it's an international criminal network who've launched this as a deliberate attack against actually the entire world's government system, and it's not authorised by country A, Y, or B. It's been done by dark cabals behind the scenes who have the money, funded by some evil billionaires somewhere. And, okay, so why would they do it? I don't think this is a kind of mafia thing, the types of groups that just, smuggle drugs and do sex. This is off the scale evil. That can be pretty bad, doing that kind of stuff. But it's kind of, in a weird way, life affirming. Whereas this stuff is utterly life-denying. And no, this would be someone doing like an evil criminal gang for what you could call eco-terrorism purposes. So kind of Extinction Rebellion with teeth, like let's get rid of humans and save the whale type activists, who are so fanatical in their hatred of mankind that they want to wipe us out. It's possible some evil genius with a PhD from MIT who's become, you know, a dark eco-fascist, dreamt this up and thought, this is brilliant, well, that's how we'll take humanity down. And then we'll, you know, save the world for the bats. Well, I'm just giving the logical options. I'm not saying, you know, which one I see the most evidence for or which one is true. I'm just saying this is the range of possibilities. Another one is that it's the dark evil private consortium, and it's working for pseudo-religious ends. So it's a kind of Christian end-of-the-world cult, sort of Armageddon's coming cult, that want to hasten the return of angry Jesus to zap everyone. And only, you know, a few will be saved, everyone else is going to hell and die in plagues. Some Christians believe that literally. They read the book of Revelations and they say that's what it says, so let's do it then. This is kind of Jehovah's Witnesses with teeth, if you want. Or, as I mentioned, some extreme Zionists, not associated with the Israeli state, you know, way off the scale of what is acceptable, might have said, no, this is great, what we're going to do is wipe out humanity, but Israel will be saved. Because that's what the Bible says. Are there nutters like that? Are there extreme right-wing crazy nutters? Yeah, I think sadly there are. And what's a bit odd is I saw an internet posting, which I didn't really investigate at the time, about 2 months ago, before all this broke out, which said, you know, Israel can survive in the event of a world outbreak of plague. You know, it was just that. I never clicked on it. I thought, oh God. I think it was some rabbi in the West Bank was saying God will protect Israel, but all the other nations will die. I'd love to know the source of that. And I think that's ethically totally wrong. I mean, I think it's scientifically wrong. Israel will not survive this. If the rest of humanity goes down, Israel's going down too. So it's vicious blowback if people deliberately did it thinking that would happen. But also, it shows a huge arrogance and a contempt for ethics and human rights. It's like, it's the nationalist mistake, which is my people only have rights and matter. Well, that was the mistake of the Nazis. That was the mistake of all racists that say only my people matter and the rest can be killed. So, you know, I hope to God, my understanding of God is universal love and wisdom, like Philo and the Zohar and Christianity and the Kabbalah and the esoteric traditions of Judeo-Christian, Islamic, Sufi, Vedantic wisdom that, you know, the consensus view in philosophy is that would be unethical to sort of deliberately engineer a mass plague that thinking that only your little tribe will survive. That's off the scale of unethical activity. So if that's the cause of it, those people need to be brought to justice, rounded up and imprisoned and prosecuted, because it's absolutely scandalous. But it needs researching, because now we're into the realm of criminal conspiracies. This would be a private unit had done that. And we should remember that, you know, Israel has a history of private terrorist organisations. And that Netanyahu's background comes from that kind of lineage. So he might not have known that this was being done, but people in his circle might have been planning it, you know. God forbid, I suspend judgment. I'm just putting stuff out there, right? Would it have been an extreme Islamic group? Well, you know, sort of Saudi Arabia. Somebody sent me a link that Saudi Arabia manufactured